September 1, 1939, 1st of September Nazi Germany starts the Second World War by invading Poland. Following the German attack on Poland, German SS, police, and military units shoot thousands of Polish citizens, including many members of the Polish nobility, clergy, and intelligentsia, ruthlessly suppressing the Poles whom they regard as racially inferior. By capturing and killing Poles, the Nazis hoped to eradicate any opposition and obliterate Polish culture and the Polish nation. For Poland, the Germans planned to be a site for mass murder of European Jewry and an unceasing source of slave labor. The first German concentration camp established outside German boundaries in World War II by the Nazis on September 2, 1939. The camp's name is Stutthof. Former staff members will pay for their misdeeds with their own lives following war, when they will be mercilessly murdered in front of 200,000 people. Official press photographers will document this mass execution, which will seem like a horror show. Today's Gdańsk, the Stutthof camp was founded by the Germans in a forest west of Stutthof, a town roughly 22 miles east of Danzig. Barbed wire fences and 8 barracks for the prisoners constructed in 1940 surrounding the original camp, sometimes referred to as the Old Camp. The camp was founded in line with the ethnic cleansing effort, which encompassed political and religious leaders as well as liquidation of Polish elites and intellectuals members. The Germans had developed lists of persons to be detained even before the war, and the Nazi officials were covertly looking at appropriate sites for concentration camps in their territory. Before its later great growth, Stutthof was first a civilian internment center under the Danzig police chief. Administered by the SD, German security police, it became a labor education camp for political detainees and individuals suspected of breaching labor rules in November 1941. At last, Stutthof started to be a regular concentration camp run under SS authority in January 1942. The camp grew and a new one was built next to the old one in 1943. It included 30 fresh barracks and was ringed by electrified barbed wire walls. Added in 1943 just in time to begin mass killings when Stutthof was integrated into the final solution, in June 1944 was a cremation and gas chamber. The gas chamber's 150 maximum capacity per execution represented the Stutthof camp system finally developed into a large network of forced labor camps. Northern and central German-occupied Poland was dotted with 105 Stutthof subcamps. Tens of thousands, maybe as many as 100,000, were deported to the Stutthof camp. Mostly non-Jewish Poles, the inmates where the camp was in appalling condition. Typhus outbreaks sweeping the camp in the winter of 1942 and once more in 1944 claimed many lives among detainees. Those the SS guards regarded too weak or sick to be working were gas chamber gassed. June 1944 saw the start of gassing with Zyklon B gas. Before the camp was evacuated, 4,000 inmates, including Jewish women and children, were slain in a gas chamber. Using deadly injections of phenol, camp doctors also killed sick or injured prisoners in the infirmary. Stutthof concentration camp and its subcamps claimed more than 60,000 deaths. Nearly all of the inmates until 1942 were Polish. With Jews making a notable share of the arrivals, the number of prisoners rose significantly in 1944. Arriving from Auschwitz in July 1944, the first contingent of 2,500 Jewish inmates from Auschwitz, 23,566 Jews including 21,817 women were sent to Stutthof overall. The camp personnel comprised SS guards and, following 1943, Ukrainian auxiliaries. Due of their extreme scarcity after their subcamp of Stutthof called Brombergost was established in the city of Bydgoszcz, the SS in Stutthof started conscripting women from Danzig and the neighboring areas to train as camp guards in June 1944. Beginning in January 1945, prisoners were evacuated from the Stutthof camp system in northern Poland. The Stutthof camp system housed almost 50,000 prisoners, the most of them Jews, when the last evacuation started. About 5,000 inmates from the Stutthof subcamps were marched to the Baltic Sea coast, driven into the sea, and machine shot. After they were cut off by advancing Soviet forces, the Germans drove the remaining captives back to Stutthof. The other inmates were marched toward Lauenburg in eastern Germany. Thousands perished on the march under extreme winter circumstances and under treatment by the SS guards. Since Stutthof was totally surrounded by Soviet forces, the last prisoners were taken from there by sea in late April 1945. Once more, hundreds of inmates were shot and dumped into the sea. 1 in 2, estimated over 25,000 inmates perished during the Stutthof and subcamps evacuation. Only roughly 100 detainees who had managed to hide after the last evacuation of the camp were discovered when Soviet forces captured Stutthof on May 9, 1945. Through Stutthof, over 100,000 inmates overall passed, 60,000 of them died and another 22,000 were moved to other concentration camps. Following the war, former Stutthof staff members were tested at the first Stutthof, starting on April 25, 1946. Among the accused was Jenny Wanda Barkman, a guard at Stutthof who had savagely beaten prisoners, some to death, either with her bare hands or with her whip. Among her casualties were also youngsters. Barkman was more bothered about her appearance than about her life during the trial. She apparently charmed with the jail guards and dressed elegant attire and a fresh haircut every day. Wanda Klaff, who had been notorious at Stutthof for her cruel treatment of detainees she would beat and kick without any justification until they laid motionless, was another accused. She would drown the female prisoners in mud or club them to death when she was especially in foul humor. She said throughout the trial, "I am rather intelligent and I was really dedicated to my work in the camps. Every daily I struck at least 2 inmates." Having said this, she was most likely the only one with such perspective. Another charged was Elizabeth Becker, a merciless overseer with growing reputation. She would beat children with their moms and then choose them to be sent to the gas chamber to be slaughtered without any regret. She also mistreated inmates. Eva Paradis, another Stutthof guard on trial, frequently told a group of female detainees to undress and stand in the snow during the bitterly cold winter. She then sprayed cold water on the naked women and would strike them when they moved. Among the 5 Stutthof guards assigned death sentences was Gerda Steinhoff as well. She was well known for choosing convicts to be transported to the gas chambers as well as for torturing female prisoners, including children, to death. The women were reported to have behaved disrespectfully, laughing and joking during the procedures despite the grave accusations. 11 defendants, found guilty of crimes against humanity, received hanging death sentences as the trial concluded on May 31. Among them were 5 above-discussed women. For sobbed and begged for their life, just one, Jenny Wanda Barkman, stayed cool. Public execution of them turned into a nightmare play captured by official news cameras. Poland only carried out 3 public executions of war offenders following World War II. Among them was one at Biskupia Gorka Hill close to Gdańsk, former Danzig. 200,000 people were seeing as 11 Nazi criminals from the Stutthof detention camp were hung from the gallows on July 4, 1946. That day Biskupia Gorka Hill was under actual siege. 3 days previously, the newspapers had revealed the execution date and employers had scheduled a day off and given staff members transportation to the event. Everyone could come to see the execution. The security officials worried that a lynching might happen at any moment and that the army and militia would struggle to contain the large assembly. July 4th was really sunny and quite warm. 11 open trucks, their hands and legs bound with cable, brought the inmates to the execution site punctually at 5 p.m. Every one of the 11 vehicles had a convict, 6 males and 5 women overall on their platform. The condemned made to stand on the tailboards or on the chairs on which they had been seated, backed under the gallows. Dressed in striped uniforms, former Stutthof inmates volunteered to be executioners and wrapped a basic string noose over their necks. The operation was designed such that the 11 convicts would be left hung after every truck would be driven forward, and their bodies would not drop from too high a height. The nooses did not thereby inflict an instant death or shatter their necks. With each of the offenders stranding for anything between 10 and 20 lengthy minutes, this short drop approach of hanging produced a tortuous death by strangling. Before falling off the platform and hanging on the rope, Johann Pauls, the former commandant of the guards in Stutthof, managed to cry, "Heil Hitler," when the driver of the first vehicle transporting him began the engine and went slowly forward. The mob replied him with their insults. Another vehicle started driving and another criminal performed what some present at the execution described as a rope dance, while Pauls's body remained immobile. The other prisoners had the chance to have a good look at what lay ahead as every truck advanced. Several times failing to start the engine, one truck driver shoved the former Stutthof prisoner off the platform. The audience waved and yelled, "For our husbands, for our children." The security guards led the audience to reach the gallows following the death of the last inmate. People tore off buttons, chopped off bits of fabric, kicked and shattered the dead. The bodies were taken from the gallows after the assembled people were driven away. Following the execution, Jenny Wanda Barkman's body was said to have been incinerated, her ashes transported to Hamburg and disposed of in the apartment where she had been born's toilet. It wasn't accurate, though. Rather, the bodies of those put to death were brought to the Medical University of Gdańsk to be used as anatomical teaching aids. For Stutthof Nazi torturers, there were no tears shed. I appreciate you viewing World History Channel. Make sure you like and click the bell notification button to avoid missing our upcoming episodes. Subscribe also. We appreciate it. Next time on the channel we will see you.